looking for a reason to be unconventional. The way cliche is the problem in the industry of entertainment. When somebody tries to open one door and everybody tries to go in through the same door. So we wanted a show that stood out. We didn't just want it to stand out for the sake of not being cliche. We wanted it to stand out because we wanted to have impact. My claim to fame in the industry was that we're part of the few people who started a revolution for the music video industry. And we're very proud of where it's gotten to. So I was thinking in my head, if I had a program that had, because the power of television, the media generally, it's not just to entertain. I mean, the world that understands it, especially America, knows that it is a force for change. It has the power to shape the mindset of the people. I mean, even as old as Hitler understood it with us, a war propaganda, instrument. So I was looking at a show that had the power to turn some things around in the entertainment industry. So we were not there to, like I would say, shake the table. We were there to fix it. But in the process of fixing the table, we had the propensity to shake it. So The Gist is a show that was designed to look at the problems that the entertainment industry did suffer. And when we said entertainment, it was definitely beyond the shores of music and movies. We went into fashion, we went into event planning, we went into everything that had to do with the business of entertainment. So we were not just looking at the people at the forefront, in front of the cameras. We're asking questions about what the ushers got paid. We're asking questions about why shows started 2, 3, 4 hours after it's been announced was going to start. We're asking about questions about security. Okay, how about the cameramen? How about the editors? So the entertainment industry 360 wanted to look at the problems that it had and push to the forefront. Because you would notice that when people talk entertainment in Nigeria, the first thing they do is just concentrate on what's buzzing, concentrate on what is popular, concentrate on who people are talking about. But we wanted to just look beyond the glitz and the glam and look at the backstage. We wanted to look at the backstory. We wanted to see the things that really did make it work or not make it work, which was the whole idea. So The Gist was a show that was not just out to entertain, but was out to highlight with the eventual hope to correct the problems that the industry of entertainment was suffering. And believe me, there are a lot of them, a whole lot. That was the genesis, and that was what gave birth to The Gist as a show. I'm one of those people who think that regardless of how great you are with blessing would now be divine endowment with talent. I think that every single industry does have a set of rules that is best gained from training, and most likely scholarly training. So the idea of going to a school or going to a series of seminars or getting some degree of academic backing to your profession, I'm one of those that really does propagate it. So even though I respect all the people who have just been great because they are natural actors, I would have naturally thought that if it was something I was going to go into, then maybe a film academy, or maybe if I had studied theater arts, I would have been easily pushed into the arts as an actor if I had some form of training. So let's just say that was the only thing that did not exactly make me become, I stumbled into broadcasting. But at the point when I understood that it was serious business, when I knew that things like pronunciation, like comportment and contact with the cameras and all that needed some technical upbringing. So I did go to the FRCN training school. I did look up a lot of stuff online. I now began to get scholarly, because what my first training, and I had a BSc in economics, my master's was in marketing, so it wasn't exactly related to broadcasting. But what I did, the first thing I did was try to get trained. So the reason, my answer to your question as to why I didn't become an actor was because I felt like I wasn't really trained for it. With all respect, due respect to all those who are actors without scholarly training, I thought that it was something that was necessary for me to have before I went into the camera. So if I get a chance to be schooled, even by a great actor, then it's not something I'm averse to doing. I could try it, it's not a problem. Ramsey Noir is the one person who I find very impressive. I think that the yardstick for measuring how great an actor is when, while watching him, you forget quickly that you are watching something that was scripted. You know, the degree of believability is one of my yardsticks for, you know, saying that someone's a great actor. And you notice that you follow Ramsey, you watch Ramsey, you forget. I mean, even some of the biggest names in Nigeria, with all due respect, some of them become very stereotyped. Some of our big names are very stereotyped. Ramsey is not a stereotype actor. Ramsey is very believable. Ramsey was not one of those that we successfully left in the box as a lover boy, because he became the angry husband, he became the guy who wasn't treated nicely, he became the deadly twin, he became all kinds of people. So I find Ramsey Noir as an outstanding, he would be my favorite Nigerian actor. And in addition to the fact that Ramsey is very believable, Ramsey is not stereotyping his delivery. I would also say that we would be honestly giving him his dues when we say that longevity too is something that has stuck by him. Ramsey, the first time I saw Ramsey was doing Fortunes, and I know I watched Fortunes on the NTA pretty late in the 80s or the early 90s. And then I saw him in Silent Night with the likes of Victoria Inyama, and the same Ramsey Noir was in the very last hit done by AY the comedian called the Yoruba Demons movie. Ramsey was superb in the movie, and this was done in 2018. So we're looking at the lifespan as an actor of almost 20 years. And I think that thing is another way to size up someone's, you know, reason to be called your favorite. So he's been around, he's been great, and he's fantastic. My favorite actor in Nigeria is Ramsey Noir. A lot of the movies that have made the cinemas in Nigeria didn't deserve to. This is my honest opinion, and if we would all be very truthfully honest to ourselves, it is indeed very true. Now, once again, it is a question of a trend is started and everybody jumps on the boat. Now, so a trend was started that Nigerian movies were allowed to also join, movies from Bollywood and Hollywood in the cinemas in Nigeria, and a few good movies opened the way. But then, I also think that the sieving that is done is not done with a strict sense of quality. Quality, it comes to bear with not just the acting, the production, the technical lapses that they have, you know, the musical score. Movies, even when they are movies made with a little money, they call them low-budget movies. Movies in America, even when they are low-budget movies, are still very serious business. You have the standard of the scoring, the standard of the time taking to make the movies. Well, movies that are made in 1 week, 2 weeks still make the cinemas in Nigeria. And I think that the obsession is twofold. One is that it became an open door for the streaming in of money. So the fact that, you know, they had huge sums coming from tickets being sold, and you don't blame the guy who goes to watch, because the only thing he gets is a nicely cut trailer on TV that makes any movie looks good. And then he gets a lot of hype in social media where they spend more money than actually in the movies themselves. So the numbers would team to go, in the teaming numbers, they will go to watch the movies. But the real feedback that never gets back to the public is the way a lot of them feel, especially when they're enlightened, when they're leaving the cinemas. A lot of people are very disappointed. I've had 2 or 3 times where I've gone to see movies. Fortunately, it wasn't something I paid for, it was something I went to see because they were premiering them, and I said to myself in my heart that this movie didn't deserve to make this. Not every movie made in Nigeria now should go to the cinemas. The DVDs are still there. All the marketing outlets that we used to have for our movies are still functional. And a lot of our families still buy them. So, and of course you wouldn't in this case completely blame the producer, because he wants his money. And the system is not structured to be very quality conscious. So I would blame the censorship board of the movie houses that we have, whoever they are, wherever they are, how many they are. they should be a little more strict, because they too also look at the marketing side of it and they see that it means more funds. And you know, Nigerians, one thing you would give to us very laudably is the fact that we love our own. And it's a beautiful thing. Our own music means the world to us, our own movies mean the world to us. And very fortunately, right now, our own fashion is meaning the world to us, which is a great thing. But then people should not begin to, capitalize on it for exploitation at the detriment of the industry. If because you know a lot of people would love to patronize this, be conscious of quality. I keep saying that the Hollywood that we love subconsciously is because we respect it for its quality. Buzz and hype and who's married to Jennifer Lopez or who's not dating Birdman, all that is secondary. We like that, but we respect Hollywood more because of how particularly how much quality is in their system. So those who approve of these movies to be in the cinemas should wake up. Let's be honest. If you keep your bars really high, that's when they work really hard to come to you. If I come to you with this movie, you turn it down, and I work on another and I improve on it and you turn it down, and I see that the only 2-3 movies you've allowed to fly were super world-class movies, I would have no choice. I would work really hard. Everybody who would come there. And then at that point, you increase the comfort level, the comfort zone of the guy at home. Because he now knows that if he's going to the cinemas, he's going to see a damn good movie. He's sure about that. But right now, we're not. Now, most of us will sit down and wait for the honest reviews of our friends who have been used as scapegoats to go and watch and see what happened, to tell us before we decide to go and see. So I'm not particularly happy with the influx, the all-comers affair that is attached to the idea of in the influx of movies into the cinemas. Someone should look at it. Whoever is responsible should look at it and begin to work on it so that they can positively encourage our producers to get better at what they do. That's what I think. Now, unfortunately for me, I have a show that's recorded and played back with time.
Okay.
So because it's so I did two things to make sure that since I was coming over to the US for a while, I did two things to ensure that it was done well. The first was that we recorded a whole lot of episodes, and in the process of recording, we ensured that they were not time-based. Whatever we decided to discuss about while I was gone, we made sure there were things that still had the value of time. And so we did record quite a lot, and we worked for 2 straight months of recording. And so we had enough to be running while I was gone. And the hope is that I will return before we run out of what we have in March and continue some more recording. My health story is very interesting. It's not the nicest thing to hear, but it's one that is enlightening, which is why I tell you with the confidence, because of the power of that it does have to help people who might want to avoid what I fell into. I come from a family that's got a history of high blood pressure, and I was hypertensive at the early age of 25. That's when I was already put on drugs, but I didn't understand the value of ensuring that I stuck very religiously to the taking of those drugs, because I found out the hard way with time that there are the two leading causes of kidney disease. The first is, unfortunately for you, if you're diabetic, if it runs in your family. And the second would be if you've got high blood pressure uncontrolled, which was my case. So I had high blood pressure uncontrolled and for quite a while. And then I also had a second thing. There's something that the doctors call gout. And gout is when you have, very deep pain in your ankles. And I was practically living on painkillers for quite a while in the period. But unfortunately, these were all that I needed to have my kidneys completely packed up. So in 2012, I used to have all kinds of ailments. My stomach would be on fire today, I'd be nauseous tomorrow, I had a headache. And the very sad thing about, which is, I don't want to even start on that because it would take it'll take 10 years for me to be done with talking about the deplorable state of the medical system in Nigeria. And it's ironic that they say that we have the best of doctors, but how they also seem to be a few miles behind detecting early what's wrong with a person is something that still beats my mind, because we were busy running from one hospital to the other and trying to find out what was wrong with me. I was told all sorts, from ulcer, stomach ulcer, to I was swallowing all kinds of tablets, and until I fortunately ran into a Dutch doctor who was visiting all the way from the Netherlands, and it was a family friend who insisted that we go see him. And at that point, I'd noticed my feet had begun to swell, and I was really sick. The funny part was how I used to get so nauseous, like I was pregnant or something. And that was the man who told me in January 2012 that the unfortunate situation with you, young man, is that your kidneys are not working anymore. I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, yes, that your kidneys are gone, and that if only you had reported these things that you were complaining about early enough, they would have found out. And I'm like, I said all these things to the doctors, and this is all the doctor said back to me. He said, now, just one doctor had seen this right on time, you would have saved your kidneys. So I laid back and I said, oh, okay, what does this mean? He said, it means that you're going to have somebody else give you a kidney to survive. I said, you're talking about a major transplant? He said, yes. I said, these ones can't work, and can't we do anything about it? He said, listen, the way that the kidneys is seeing and the values he's seeing from the blood work, these kidneys are gone, and he is amazed that I am standing on my feet. And I'm like, okay. Well, in between now and the transplant, that there's something that medicine has discovered called dialysis. I'm like, what's that? That's the one word that I probably have said 1 billion times in my life. And I'm like, what's dialysis? He says, well, it means that there's a machine now that will do what your kidneys don't do anymore. And this machine is going to slowly draw blood out of your body, cleanse it like your kidney would have, and return it to you. But because too much blood can be taken out of your body at the same time, it's going to be done slowly and returned slowly. And that's why it's going to take you 5 hours to do this session. So in my head, I'm thinking, okay, as bad as this is, I'll just sit down for 5 hours, and then after I sit down for 5 hours once, I will get up and wait for a transplant. And he said, no, this 5-hour treatment, you have to get every 2 days. Now that's when it started dawning on me that I was in trouble. I said, I have to do this every 2 days. He said, yes. He said, you have to do this 3 times a week. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays were the days they chose for me. So I would sit down, and they would, the hard part about this was, how did they draw the blood out of your body? They had to use needles. You know, the way you would pull blood out of with needle. Now, that was not the hard part. The hardest part was that the needles were like the size of nails. They were massive, huge needles that had to be put into your body. And the first time, they had to be put like right here, very close to, the groin area. And it was such a painful experience. And they put 2, not 1, because one was going to draw blood out, and the other was going to send it in. So they had that process, and I waited 5 hours, 4 hours literally, for that to happen. And that's when I realized that, there was something big I was dealing with here. And then I began to research some more, ask more questions, and talk. And then I discovered the things that cause kidney disease. Very unfortunately. Now, it's a degree of ignorance that I really wish I could literally just turn around for everybody. Once people just hear kidney disease, the first thing they think is that you were drinking and you were smoking your life away. It's absolutely wrong. I have been doing dialysis since 2012. This is probably 6 years going to 7. I've seen all kinds of people. Some of them have never had any contact with alcohol. Some of them, I've seen children who are 12 years old, 14, 16 coming to do dialysis. And so I'm asking, why is this person doing dialysis? And I started to realize how much this was the one realization that actually led me to start like a foundation for this. I realized how many things could make your kidneys pack up that had nothing to do with smoking or drinking. There was dehydration. If you had You were the kind that didn't take too seriously the idea of taking a lot of water. You were risking having your kidneys pack up any day. If you're the kind who takes painkillers without doctor's prescription, you just pop every 10 minutes you feel something, they're going to one place only, and they're going to your kidneys that's supposed to break them down. And your kidneys are not doing that with enough space in between, it will wear your kidneys out too. If you had an accident and you were bleeding internally, and this wasn't noticed, your kidneys may go. And that's why even for women who have issues during childbirth, that's one thing they look out for. A lot of women have lost their kidney function only because pregnancy didn't go too well. So there's so many things that if you're diabetic, some people are diabetic just because it's no fault of theirs. They're just born into families where the sugar level is a little too much. If you're diabetic and you don't sit on the problem of diabetes very well, it's like diabetes is actually the number one cause of kidney disease. And then there's also the high blood pressure, like I told you, which was my case. If you don't control if they give you medication for high blood pressure, if they say take it every day, please take it every day. Things like that. So I discovered that the kidney disease was something, and then what was scary to me in the process of my finding out what it was all about was that 36 million Nigerians, as at 2016, 36 million Nigerians were dealing with one form of kidney-related disease or the other. If you want to know how big 36 million is, that is the entire size of the nation of Canada. I mean, Jamaica as a whole, as massive as they are, there are 2 million people in Jamaica. So we're talking about 36, we're talking about a nation of people with kidney disease living in Nigeria. There's also, Eritrea has only 500,000 people. So how many people would you, if you want to see the size, are dying every day, not just because they have kidney disease, but basically because they do not know they have kidney disease. So if you look at some of the symptoms when you look at this disease, your leg begins to swell, you start to throw up. If you don't go for dialysis, your skin starts to get very black on your face, dark, your eyes get pale. And the first thing that the average person would think in Nigeria, especially when the doctors are telling you they're not sure what's going on, is that somebody from the village is at it right now. And that mentality, unfortunately, is killing a lot of people. So for me, that was when I realized that there was a problem. And that's how I started getting on dialysis. So until I had my first transplant in 2012, I had realized that not just myself had a big problem. The country we lived in had a massive problem. The treatment for dialysis, a lot of people are dying not just because of ignorance. Those who are fortunate enough to be diagnosed and told that they have kidney disease and they go to the hospital for a solution, many of them cannot cope with the cost of that dialysis that I spoke about earlier. Dialysis in Nigeria does cost about 35,000. Not subsidized. It is not subsidized by the government at all, which is one of the things I was pushing before I came to the US. We're pushing for the Senate to pass a bill so that the way patients of HIV enjoy a whole lot of medical services and medication for free, that they could do the same thing for people suffering from dialysis, because a lot of them can't afford. How many people in Nigeria can pay 150,000 a week? Because it's not just your dialysis proper, a lot of medication will be given to you. So an average of 50,000 in 3 places for 1 week, you must do that. So a lot of people die, basically because they just don't have the money to pay for dialysis. So for me, basically, that was how I discovered my problem, and also discovered that it was a problem that we had as a massive epidemic in the country as well. Then the scary part happened when I went to my direct mail box and I saw people sending me stuff. And it happens every day up until yesterday morning. somebody who has a medical condition that has nothing to, people calling me to talk to their brothers just to tell them to be strong, people showing their mothers, this guy, he also has the same problem, he's, look at his attitude, he's smiling, and I was amazed at how much of a blessing that could be to other people. And that was the day I decided that this wasn't a thing of shame. I probably even had a divine reason for coming my way. So one of the blessings that has been brought from my ordeal is the fact that I've become like the poster boy for you can make it regardless of whatever you're dealing with ill health. So, and when I realized that the people had given me that mantle to carry, I began to carry it with pride so anytime I get a peculiar story, I don't try to bore people with too much, bad news, but anytime I get a peculiar story of the power and the will to say that something will not get you down, and also shows the divine assistance that can come from believing that God will sort you out, I'm quick to push it out there. And I have been happy and amazed and impressed by the impact it has on people. I mean, I have people telling me about how much I inspire them. I have people telling me they didn't commit suicide because of me. And I mean, it sounds like something from a movie, but it does touch me. And that's one thing that this ailment has brought my way. It has helped me to use my life to become like a testimony, people would say, to a lot of people. And a lot of people saying to me that they're not giving up because of me means the world to me. And it makes me really put an end of this and eventually tell anybody and everybody who's dealing with anything, and it's not necessarily ill health, but regardless of the challenge, it's not the size, like they say, of the dog in a fight. It's the size of the fight that is in the dog that pulls him through. So what's the fight in you? You have to make sure it's massive. Regardless of what it is, you can beat whatever it is you want to beat. I mean, when I say you are, I'm talking to anybody who could have loved me or who would have missed me. Because anybody who's suffered from kidney disease and been hit with it, like it has hit me, who's told you he hasn't thought about cutting life short just to stop because the pain is not just physical. The physical difficulty of dealing with kidney disease, nobody can explain it to you until you deal with it yourself, There's also the emotional pain. There's also the financial burden. So there's really nowhere you go to and it's easy when you deal with kidney disease. I had the roughest of times in 2015. And this was because, like now you're talking about, being a bit down. I worked for a company for 12 years with a company that I had a flawless record in the company. And they had a policy of very little tolerance for prolonged illness. And so it was a company where people were complaining about, not being treated nice because they were sick and stuff. So the company was having issues with me being, popularly sick, but still having my job. So that had started to become a problem. And yes, even when I came to America, one would have naturally thought that the presence in America would have been the end of it and you were empowered. Hell no. I have a lot of respect for people who, before this interview I was talking to a new friend, Uche, who has spent 14 years, and I'm like, I don't know how you all do it. I have a lot of respect for people who have lived in this country 5, 10, 15 years. And you were born in Nigeria and you know how free it feels to be in Nigeria and how the system is and the warmth of people around you and how, they say that the child in the community brings up a child, and all that thinking is thrown out of the window once you get in here. Every man for himself. If you don't work, you won't eat. If you don't work so hard, and then, the way the power bills by the second for these people is something else. So, well, not just those challenges, of course, which I managed to beat with God's help, but the idea of being in America alone and the loneliness is terrible. I discovered that loneliness can actually drive people mentally crazy. It is something, if you have people, especially if you have old parents at home who nobody's checking on. That's a great disservice you're doing. An amazing disservice. People who have the propensity to be lonely or feel alone. Loneliness is something not to take for granted. I have discovered that personally from living by myself over a year in America. Please, if you know people who are lonely, if you know people you need to check on, it's something totally important. Yeah, but all that, tendency to feel down and low, I fought that. And with God's help, I think I beat it. I beat it completely. So for every time,
like being close to committing suicide.
Yes, I did. I didn't. I was weak enough to think that it was an alternative. It was a window to end it. But I was not stupid enough to think about attempting it. Health was poor, and another thing that we do not have is the culture of looking out for people. So there were times, of course, when I felt really alone, but very fortunately for me, that's all in the past now. Because while I live in a system where there's family, there are friends, I'm blessed with those two very well. I'm blessed with great friends. I'm blessed with family that loves me a lot, and they have been very supportive, and they have been part of the reason why I have been able to make it. Notion that I am lounging and doing super good. I'm sure it comes from two things. The first being that before I left Nigeria, I looked like I was heading for my grave, and I think that the medical system here has been fantastic. So a very large percentage of my health has been restored. In the sense that I am strong enough to be going for my dialysis and dealing with all the things that I deal with. So I look better physically. I've heard that from too many places. I believe it. When I came, that's one thing that gives that impression. But it is false to think that it's all good. It's not been so easy at all. It's been tough from different angles, materially, emotionally, physically. It's not been easy. I have had more procedures in America in the last year than I've had my whole life. I've been into the theater here 6 times since I came to America. I've been into the theater 6 times,
That
6 times.
That costs money.
Yeah, it does cost a lot. And fortunately for me too, I've got the good hands and the merciful system of the Johns Hopkins Hospital that does a lot of, stuff for me on the basis of a program that they call TAPS, So otherwise, I have no doubt that I wouldn't have been able to cope with what it takes financially. So that impression that another reason why that also happens. I mean, I have heard that my sickness was like, that's what I said. Once you have a degree of popularity, I learned this way back in 2002. It's almost 18 years when some woman called Nonso, so I can't remember Chinonso, if I remember correctly. She used to write entertainment for the Punch newspaper, and she would pick on me and she would talk about me, and I thought that was strange and weird because I wasn't used to people calling me from all over the country to say they read this about me. But that was when, even though I just left university, that was when I learned the hard way that once you're a little popular, my dear, open make sure you have a thick skin, because you're going to hear all sorts, true and untrue. I heard that my sickness was a scam. I heard, that was the most painful bit when I heard that I was trying to raise money because I wanted to live this lavish life. I wasn't exactly sick, that it was because people would see me and think that, but that's not true. I've been dealing with a lot of difficulty with my health and very painful in America. And I'm waiting patiently for the system to permit me to be at that point when I can get it all right and done completely. So it's not all good. It's me being strong. And I wouldn't. Here's another thing that would address that for you quickly. When you lose a battle in your head, you have lost it completely. You're just waiting to, a lot of people who I know have died from having the kidney disease was because at a point they stopped fighting in their heads. I will never stop fighting in my head. It doesn't matter what's happened to me physically. But I would never tell on 2 occasions I've been told that for my balance I needed to use a cane, and I told my doctors no. I would never seem like I was some disabled person. And that's my head working, so because my head tells me every time you're fine, you'll be okay, get up and show up, and I would do what I need to do. I would do my best to look as good as I can look. I'm not going to say because I have a chronic kidney disease, I would have a problem with taking my shower or combing my hair or cutting my hair twice a month. I would do the things that I need to do to look as good as I can and look as happy as I can. If by some chance a man's strong-heartedness to fight regardless of what he's dealing with translates to you that he's doing great, well, thanks for the compliment. I think it's a compliment, but those who know me and those who talk to me regularly they all know that it's far from the reality. The reality is that I'm still dealing with the nastiness of this disease, and I'm still working hard to make sure that I beat it eventually. And it's not a question of if, it's actually a question of when, because I will beat it, and I'm sure about that. I was happy every time it buzzed because I said whoever sat down and thought about pushing this out, did a great job, because, the video got a lot of attention and you would notice that everybody got talking. And for some reason, with due respect to Tiwa Savage, she's a great singer and she has a lot of history behind and she's exposed as a singer. And I say this because to mean that Tiwa is in Nigeria, singing as a Nigerian, but she has background that says that she can be a global singer anywhere. So with performances, with the vocal dexterity, with what she does in the studio, Tiwa is actually a world-class star, that's the truth. But you would notice that what that video did for her, that's not to say that all the other girls around who are also singing are not as equally amazing. Because I love Shei Shei. I think that Waje is superb. I think Omaomi is wonderful, and of course there's the Yemi Alade as well, as much as a couple of them. But you notice that it seems as if Tiwa seems to be a notch ahead of the others with buzz. And it's not because Tiwa sings better than these names I have called. It's not because Tiwa is a more fantastic artist than these people I've called. She seems to get a lot of attention and is wearing the jersey as the #1 female artist now. Subjectively, it's subject to debate. But because of the fact of the likes of what that video did for her, the video and the buzz around her public relations is very high. But the interesting thing that video brought out that got a lot of public commentary around it, that got me thinking is, why do we have a problem with a woman being older than a guy? I know some 50, 40-year-old boys, and I know some 25-year-old men, if you know what I mean. So, age being a number, it does have, I agree that time has a way of instilling maturity, but this is not a hard and fast rule. There are some people who learn and some people who don't. And if you ask a lot of women, older women who have had the audacity against societal, demands to deal with a few men younger than them, they will tell you sincerely and honestly that some of these so-called younger ones have displayed the maturity that a lot of older ones lack. So it's not about age, it's about what's happening in the mind of the individual. It's about the degree of maturity the person has found. If you were at 15 or 12 when you lost your mom, and at 16 you lost your dad, and you had 4 siblings, and you did not have all the most loving relatives in the world, and with everything that you did, you worked as hard as you could, at the age of 21, as a man that went through that, you would not have the average thinking of a 21-year-old. You would have the thinking of a guy who's 40 or 50, because you have seen things in life that have quickly shaped your mind into a level of maturity. Take it or leave it, there are a lot of young men out there who have been through things that have made men out of them before their ages declare them men in the eyes of society. So if a woman comes across a man like that, and for for some reason is impressed with his intellectual strength, his emotional stability, and you find that in a 25-year-old, and it's because somebody's going to say that he's younger than you, that you don't want to be happy, well, I think your funeral, if you ask me. But if you're bold enough to know what's good for you in your life, and you know that this person, despite his or her age, happens to have what makes you happy, I think it's time to let society take a nap and do what you have to do. If I found a woman, I mean, I'm pretty old though, at 42 or 43 now, but if I saw somebody older than me that I loved, I would be with the person. If I found someone younger than me that I loved, I would be with the person. I would look at the person's heart, the person's, like I said, stability with emotion, mental, intellectual compatibility, strength of character. Those are things to look out for. When you find that in the person, it doesn't really matter how old, as long as you're not abusing a child, a teenager or something. I mean, everything is all right.